So sugar, I consider it to be the great ager of the skin. Sugar will actually bond to that collagen, causing that collagen to become permanently kinked. And the way I describe the collagen in our skin, it's like the logs of a log cabin. And when we're young, those logs are nice and tight, they're strong. And as we get older, those logs...
Welcome to the More Than a Pretty Face podcast, where we go more than just skin deep to explore the science of beauty so you can look and feel your best at any age. In today's episode, we're exploring the revolutionary approaches to aging and rejuvenation. We're diving deep into the fascinating world of autojuvenation, essentially using your body's regenerative ability to look and feel younger. It's such an honor to have board certified plastic surgeon and a leading expert in holistic anti aging therapies with us today. He has over 5 million YouTube subscribers, over 8 million TikTok followers, making him the most followed plastic surgeon on social media. Please welcome Dr. Anthony Youn.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you? It's so nice for you to join us. We're so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. Thank you.
So, I love your content online. You're hilarious. I love how you have that humor and education. You combine the two and you don't take yourself very seriously.
Really into music, and I was in a band actually that we did some touring and stuff during residency. And then when I got into practice, all my energy went into starting my practice. And very quickly, one of the things that really got me going was I got on a show called Dr. 90210. And it was in this first season. It was one of the first plastic surgery reality shows. And I was on it for literally just 2 minutes, but it exploded my practice. And so, what it really got me into understanding was how media at the time could really help your medical practice, your plastic surgery practice. And so, I did TV for quite a long time, many years. I was a frequent guest on Rachel Ray's show, on Dr. Oz, The Doctors, and all the different morning shows. And then I started parlaying it eventually into social media, starting with Facebook, Twitter. Didn't do a lot on Twitter, and then eventually Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all of that. So now it's just a creative outlet for me, and it's great because my creative outlets in the past really were just for fun, and now it's actually become a bit of a business.
Yeah, and I love that doctors are doing this because it's so important for us to have a voice with all this misinformation and influencers that aren't seeing patients and practicing medicine like we are. So I feel like it's really our due diligence to be out there, giving factual information. So I love that. So normally on our show, we do a segment called Beauty and Blemish, where we talk about the best things happening in our life right now and the not so great things, the blemishes of our world. Do you have a beauty or a blemish you want to share with us, with our audience?
Yeah, so I guess beauty. I mean, I don't consider it. I mean, I don't know. I don't look at myself like, oh, what's my beauty part? But I think if I were to say when my wife and I first got together and we did these like couples testing type things for fun, one of the things that she said that she found most attractive is that I have like a full head of hair. She
Oh.
liked my hair. Now, the last few years, I've been getting a little bit thinner on top, so that's been a little bit traumatic for me. So I've been taking doing some things to try to thicken that up. And I'm sure my wife would love me even if I was bald. But still, I'd say that that's one of my traits that I feel like I'm proud of. As far as a blemish, I think one thing that I've always felt self-conscious of is that I have a bit of a gummy smile. So when I smile, I show a
Wow.
little more of my gums than I would like to. And it's been a lot worse when I was younger. And I've always thought, now as a plastic surgeon, I do a lot of injections. I can always do a little bit of Botox that could help with it. Actually, my mentor in Los Angeles, I did a fellowship out there with a top name plastic surgeon. He had a procedure that he would do where he would actually make an incision at the base of the nose, cut some of the upper lip elevators, and then actually put a silicone implant
Oh,
at the
wow.
base of the nose. And the idea was to be like kind of a spacer, so that
Oh,
the lip didn't elevate. And I did a bunch of those with him. But now I would just do a little bit of Botox. That'd be
yeah.
a lot easy. But I just haven't, I guess, because it doesn't bother me quite as much as it used to.
Well, I would have never thought any one of those things you just mentioned, but I'm excited to hear what you're doing about your hair because your hair looks really full. And I'm really excited to talk to you about Younger for Life, your new book.
Thank you.
But before we get into it, tell us a little bit about this concept of autojuvenation and how it's revolutionizing the way we think about aging.
Yeah, so many years, I'm a plastic surgeon, so I was trained basically in doing surgery. And many years ago, I thought that I had reached the pinnacle of success. And one of the things that we look at as surgeons really is that when we're doing some of the bigger operations, we take pride in that. So if you're a general surgeon, that operation that you really want to do because it's so difficult and long and arduous is the Whipple. In plastic surgery, we probably look at the facelift as being kind of the pinnacle of operations. If you're really good at a facelift, then you know that you're a really, really skilled surgeon. And so for many years, I actually gauged the success of my practice based off how many facelifts I was doing.
Mm.
And then I had a patient who had a terrible complication after a facelift with me, and it really sent me reeling. It got me really into rethinking, am I doing the right thing? Now, you and I, we do a lot of cosmetic procedures, in our practice, and we're doing it to help people. But when somebody has such a big complication, it can get you thinking, are we really doing the right thing by taking somebody essentially who is healthy, and then I operate on them, I make them unhealthy, expecting that they're going to be healthy again. And in the end, that's typically what happens. And so for a long time, I started considering, am I doing the right thing for my patients? Is plastic surgery even the right thing where we are, operating on people, potentially making them sick? And so I started really taking time to realize that there was a lot that I didn't know, a lot that I wasn't taught in my residency and medical school and all that. And that all entailed non-surgical ways to turn back the clock. For example, when I went through my residency, I did 3 years of general surgery, 2 years of plastic surgery. I did a year fellowship in Beverly Hills. And during that entire time, I didn't spend a day with a dermatologist.
Oh.
Yet, how much anti-aging skincare and stuff do plastic surgeons do, and they didn't have me work with any dermatologists because they thought as dermatologists as being in a turf war with them, because they didn't want to lose procedures and stuff to them. So anyways, I spent a lot of time figuring out that there was a lot I didn't know about nutrition, about skincare, about preventative therapies, about non-invasive therapies. And I set out to learn all that stuff on my own. I started learning from alternative medicine physicians, and it got me realizing that there was kind of this whole way that we can turn back the clock naturally. And that became the concept of autojuvenation and the basis of my book. And essentially, what autojuvenation means is that our bodies contain innate regenerative abilities to naturally turn back the clock. But in order for our bodies to do so, we have to unlock it. We have to give our body the right tools and the right environment to do so. And I firmly believe that if we do that, the vast majority of us can turn back the clock 5, 10 years, maybe longer, and hopefully not feel the need to go under the knife.
I love that. I love the holistic approach because I share that same sentiment. When I see a patient with a skin condition, I'm just not looking at the condition. I want to know,
Mhm.
so much more about the patient as a whole, everything from their lifestyle, their tendencies. Because I see a lot of patients that, for example, are not into doing skincare. So it's so important to really consider not just, the aesthetic concern, but the patient as a whole. So when you say this, and then that makes really a lot of sense to me because as we get older, our body parts become more lazy. Are you stimulating some of these processes that have slowed down, kind of like what we do, for example, with laser resurfacing? We remove part of the
Yes.
skin that stimulates our skin to reproduce new healthy skin cells. So is this a similar concept?
It is. And the way I look at autojuvenation is it comprises really encompasses 5 different things. And so it's what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
it's when you eat, it's nutritional supplements, it's skincare, and non-invasive treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And when people ask me, okay, so you're talking about, let's say, what you eat, and say, well, why not just have a facelift? And I get patients who come in all the time and they say, hey, look, I've got money in my pocket. I just want to have a facelift. I want to look younger. I don't want to deal with all this other stuff. And the way I look at overall anti-aging, it's like you're building a house. And the facelift is like the spire at the top of the house.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think about that first, ideally. What you want to think about is building the foundation. And the foundation of the house is going to be the food that you eat,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be your diet.
Mm-hmm.
The first floor of that house is going to be like nutritional supplements. It's going to be that and like skincare. The second floor is going to be more of the non-invasive treatments. And then way at the top, that's when you think about things like injectables and surgery. But it doesn't do you any good to have a facelift if your diet is really poor, if you're constantly snacking, and so you've got issues with insulin resistance, if you're not taking good care of your skin, if you're getting a ton of sun, if you've got bad habits like smoking or vaping, or and so really focusing on these natural ways is definitely what I recommend. I think what a lot of people don't realize though is the power that is in those natural techniques. So for example, one of the big things, is when you eat. And one of the big things I'm a big fan of is intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that if you give our bodies a chance, 12 to 16 hours, not to be basically getting energy, not to be feeding yourself, then you actually allow your body's internal regenerative recycling processes to occur. That in and of itself is anti-aging. And I've seen people who've gone on these kind of limited intermittent fasts or like a 5-day fasting mimicking diet and things like that, and have seen really nice changes in their skin because they're allowing their body to actually take over and that autojuvenative processes to work.
I love that. And, I think as a country or maybe as a culture, we're looking for that quick fix, like you said. People come
Yeah.
in and they just, they want to do the facelift and they want to just look 10, 20 years younger without having going through some of the processes that you're explaining. So I personally intermittent fast and what are you practicing this as well? Is this something you practice yourself? Because you look like you're
Yeah, and one of the
25.
things I wish. Yeah, I mean, I do myself usually a couple of times a week. And, it's like I have friends of mine who are quote unquote biohackers and they'll fast for 5 days on a water fast. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do a little bit of fasting because they're worried that it's going to be so difficult. And it really isn't, And the great thing is you can start at literally doing a 12-hour fast where you stop eating at 8 p.m. and you don't eat until 8 a.m. the next day. And your body's going to benefit from that. Now, if you extend that up to 16 hours, stop eating at 8 p.m., and then you don't eat until noon the next day, then that's going to be even better. But even just starting with a 12-hour fast, there are some studies that do show that that may help to stimulate autophagy even in that short process. Autophagy meaning that intracellular renewal process that I was mentioning earlier that can only happen if you're not constantly eating.
I love that.
So yeah, I do intermittent fasting. This is something that's been in cultures for, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of years, in pretty much most cultures, except our culture today, the standard American culture, where we've taken on so many bad habits of constantly snacking, of not sleeping well at
Mhm.
night. Other types of practices that we do that are just terrible for us is we've gotten rid of, let's say, fermented foods in our diet.
Mhm.
So our food is essentially sterile, and a huge percentage of it is ultra processed foods.
Mhm.
And so by making simple changes in these types of things, you can really, really see big changes in your skin.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about what happens, we are overconsumers of sugar in all different, ways, like even carbs and certainly junk food and cookies and so forth. Let's talk about the effects of sugar on the skin. What happens when you are, you know, consuming a lot of these refined sugars and so forth?
Yeah, so sugar I consider it to be the great ager of the skin. And the reason why is that sugar can impact the skin in two main ways. The first is a process called glycation. And essentially, the sugar molecules can bond to the collagen in your skin. Now, our skin is composed about 70 to 80% of collagen. Collagen is a part of our skin that makes our skin feel tight and smooth and strong and youthful. And as we get older, we start to lose about 1% of the thickness of collagen every year. Women after menopause lose upwards of 2% a year, and they can, in the first 5 years after menopause, studies can show they can lose upwards of 30%
Wow.
of the thickness of collagen in their skin in literally those first 5 years after menopause. And so collagen and having robust collagen is so important to youthful and healthy skin. But what does sugar do? Sugar will actually bond to that collagen, causing that collagen to become permanently kinked. And the way I describe the collagen in our skin, it's like the logs of a log cabin. And when we're young, those logs are nice and tight, they're strong. And as we get older, those logs start to fray, they start to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar comes along and sugar binds to it, making them fall apart even more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way that sugar does that. And those are called advanced glycation end products, properly named AGEs. The other way that sugar really impacts our skin is by creating chronic inflammation. So when you get chronic sugar spikes, that can lead to chronic insulin spikes. Chronic insulin spikes can then lead to chronic inflammation. And inflammation is one of the great agers of our skin. And so one simple thing, when we look at how much sugar that we eat, standard American diet, 20% of the calories in the standard American diet come from sugar sweetened drinks,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's soda pop, fruit juices, energy drinks. 20% of our calories are essentially completely devoid of nutrition because it's just sugar. And so, if you make one simple change to your diet after listening to this podcast, just reducing the amount of sugary drinks that you drink every day is huge. And that would be a good first step for so many people.
That's so true. And I feel like when I am consuming sugar, it's almost like my body becomes dependent on it and it just becomes
Oh,
this
yeah.
habitual thing. Whereas when I, abstain from it for even a short period of time, even let's say a few days, it gets used to not having it and you don't crave it as much. It just goes to show you it becomes so habitual. And just like you can pick it up, you can also, try to get rid of it. So I have really been enjoying your book, Younger for Life,
Oh, thank you.
and I would love to hear from you some key strategies from your book that our listeners can start implementing today to tap into this autojuvenation using your body's regenerative power.
Well, one thing that we have in the book that I think I've been really pleased with, it's called our 21-day jumpstart. And we tested it on a number of people in my office and had really good results. And then once the book came out, we did a 21-day jumpstart publicly
Mm.
with about 10,000
Oh,
people and
wow.
had just some amazing, yeah, amazing feedback from it. And essentially what it is for the first week, what you do is you clean up your diet.
Mm-hmm.
So you get rid of ultra processed foods, you reduce the amount of sugar, so you get rid of all the sugary drinks and stuff that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You get rid of dairy
Mm-hmm.
and gluten, and you really focus on then healthy sources of protein, healthy sources of anti-inflammatory fats, colorful fruits and vegetables, whole grains, that type of thing, as long as there's not gluten in it. So for the diet, we start with that, and then we have them start on a very limited number of supplements. Those supplements are a collagen supplement, a multivitamin, an omega-3 fatty acid, a probiotic, and an antioxidant mix of supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So we start on that, and then we start them on a very simple skincare routine that I call the 2 minutes, 5 years younger skincare routine.
I love that.
They do that for the first week.
Mm-hmm.
And then in weeks 2 and 3, so days 7 through 21, they add a little bit of intermittent fasting to it.
Mm.
And what we found is that after 21 days, people saw crazy changes in their skin to the point where they would be out to dinner with their friends and their friends didn't know they're doing this jump start and would tell them, wow, your skin looks amazing. What are you doing with it? I had people who said, geez, the energy that they've had after going on this 21-day jumpstart was amazing. They haven't had that energy in so long. People are sleeping better. People had improvement in chronic pain, and most people even lost a few unwanted pounds. And this was after just 21 days of very simple changes to what you eat, to nutritional supplements, skincare, then adding just a little bit of intermittent fasting. And so I think it's so important for people to realize that making these simple, actionable steps can really yield visible changes, as well as changes how you feel and your overall health.
And make it a lifestyle. I think a lot of us jump on these fads and these trends and we've seen these come and go, but really it's essentially you have to make it a lifestyle to make it just your natural being of
Yeah,
existence.
and you don't have to restrict yourself. I think that's the other thing we got from people. This is not calorie restriction or anything like that. You eat whatever you feel comfortable eating, whatever you wanted to. And the food, the recipes that we gave them in the book, as well as we've got a free recipe book. Um, Also, people found, wow, I really like the food, and then this is how you can actually enjoy eating you can actually enjoy, taking care of your skin and all that, and then see great results afterwards. It's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and like you said, intermittent fasting has been in various cultures for forever and ever and ever. I know, like, growing up in Iran, we had the Ramadan, which is
Yep.
when people fast both food and water for X amount of hours. And I think when you do that, your body starts to just get comfortable with not having so much calories, throughout the day. It automatically you shift to a lower caloric intake. So, in younger life, you discussed the role of diet, exercise, and lifestyle in maintaining youthfulness. Can you share a few actionable tips in other areas? We talked a lot about diet, but what about exercise? What about alcohol? What about some of these other lifestyle changes that we can make?
Yeah, one of the things I was researching for the book, and I'm looking at my parents and my in-laws as they're getting older, and this is just something that I found very interesting, but makes complete sense. There's this fallacy amongst the older generation that walking is the perfect exercise. Now, I need to let you know, I'm all for getting 10,000 steps. I think that's great. But there is this fallacy as people get older that, well, all I have to do is walk. And my parents believe that, my in-laws believe that, and they walk every day, which is fine. But the problem with that is that when you're walking, what are you doing? You are only using those muscles that propel you forward in a slow way. These are called slow twitch muscle fibers, and they're basically the muscle fibers that are used for endurance activities. But there are also muscle fibers called fast twitch muscle fibers. These are muscle fibers that are used for more explosive type movements. And when all you do is walk, all you're doing is then working that one set of muscles that are propelling you forward that are slow twitch. Well, when you look at one of the things that we fear as we get older, one of the big things is breaking a hip.
Mm-hmm.
There was a study that found that in adults over the age of 50, 30%, there was a 30% mortality rate in the first 12 months after a broken hip in people who are over the age of 50. And I'm like 51, so I
What?
guess I apply to that. And so, how do you avoid breaking a hip? Well, one of the things that can happen to old people is that if that's all they're doing is, okay, all you do is you walk and then you trip on something, and these older people who haven't been working these fast twitch muscle fibers will just go straight down and land on their face
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have those reflexes, that those muscles that are used to like stabilizing them in that moment that they trip, because all they're using are the slow twitch muscle fibers to propel them forward. And so one of the things that's super, super important as people get older is to do strength training, resistance training. Now, you don't have to go to the powerhouse gym and bench press with all the young kids, but what you ideally want to do is at least 3 very basic strength training or resistance exercises. And those are some type of a chest press. And once again, you don't have to do it with a huge bar, but a chest press, you can do that on a Nautilus device. Leg press and rows. So if you do those 3 exercises, chest press, leg press, and rows, you're going to be working most of those fast twitch muscle fibers that are going to be necessary to help stabilize your body in case that you need something like that to happen. And so really what I recommend is combine those types of strength training with yoga,
Mm-hmm.
because yoga now you're going to be working on your balance. That's going to be so, so important as you get older. And so that's one of the big things I put in the book is really looking at aging from a more holistic perspective. Your family doctor may tell you, oh, walking is great, just go walking and you'll be fine. But when you really think about it and you drill it down, you go, you know what? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Walking is fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
but if that's all you do, you're doing yourself a disservice and you put potentially yourself at risk of higher risk of injuries and even a higher risk of premature death if that's all you do.
And we know that weights are important, right, for our bones. It's what stimulates the autoblasts and slows down the osteoclasts that break the bone down. So I agree too. That weightlifting, particularly for women, is really important. We have the most amazing podcast community, and we want to thank you for being such a loyal listener. To thank you for being a fan of the show, we want to extend 15% off exclusively to podcast listeners. Just use code SUN15 now through the end of May. That's SUN15. This is a special discount we're only giving to our podcast listeners to get 15% off your favorite products at Aussie MD Skincare. Don't forget to tag me in your skincare selfies. I love to see you glow. So let's shift gears here a little bit. In terms of technology and innovation, we're seeing a lot of rejuvenation, anti-aging therapies kind of coming on. Are there any new treatments or technologies that you're particularly excited about or you've implemented in your practice?
Yeah, I think right now when you're looking at skin tightening, I think the present right now is Morpheus 8. So we've been doing a lot of that in my office. But I'm interested. Now we're looking at microcoring, and I don't know if you've had a lot of experience with that, but I haven't yet. There's a company called Ellacore
Mm-hmm.
where essentially what they're doing is, when we do a facelift, we're essentially removing skin, and it could be, let's say, a centimeter or so of skin. Microcoring is kind of this very interesting technique where they take a device and they remove tiny little cores of skin, so small that it doesn't necessarily leave a scar. But after a few treatments, the idea is that you can remove significant, amount of skin by doing this essentially scarless procedure. And I think really the idea, there's a lot of people who over the decades have advertised non-surgical facelifts. This is the first one that actually may make a little bit of sense. I just haven't used it yet, but I'm kind of curious to see what the results. It's fairly new. I don't know. Have you had any experience with that?
I personally don't have it, but I do find that when we do fractionated lasers or when I do the full ablative resurfacing, it's a similar type of phenomenon.
Yeah,
But when somebody comes in and they have, their ligaments are stretched out and there's other aspects to the sagging skin, that's where the Ellacore or laser resurfacing is going to fall short, right? If it's truly just
definitely.
skin and not like
Yeah.
the muscle getting stretched or the ligaments getting stretched, because I think that is really what differentiates a true like deep plane facelift from just removing skin, right? And I think yes, it would
I
probably
totally
work,
agree.
yeah, when up until maybe you're 55 or 60. It's certainly genetic, as you know. You've seen people in their 40s and they look better than some 30-year-olds that you see. So it's so variable, but it definitely has a place in our beauty armamentarium, and I think that it is great for somebody who's just got a little bit of extra skin.
When I go through my facelift consultations, one of the things I tell them is, look, when we're doing this operation, we're not just treating your skin, we're treating three things. We're removing excess skin, we're removing and replacing unwanted fat pockets
Mhm.
or fat pockets that have moved, and we are tightening up the underlying muscle layer. And it's true, no non-invasive or minimally invasive treatment can do all three of those things. You can remove fat minimally invasively, but that's not taking care of the skin or the muscle layer. You can get rid of skin or lift skin a bit, tighten skin, I guess is probably a better term for it, by doing some of these laser treatments and maybe the Ellacore. But yeah, in the end, when you're looking at really three layers of tissues that you do want to treat, ideally in those people who've got a lot of laxity, a lot of looseness, then unfortunately right now still surgery is the only real option.
Yeah, at some point. So tell us a little bit about exosomes. Are you using exosomes? Have you what are your thoughts on that? I know that a lot of people are, some of them injecting them, some of them applying topically. I know it's a big kind of buzzing
Yeah, that's
trend.
really interesting. I haven't had any experience with them yet. I've been watching it, and I think there's still been, my understanding, last I heard, there was still some potential legal issues. The FDA has really cracked down on stem cell therapies. Exosomes, as you and I both know, are essentially messengers,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like what comes from the stem cells. The idea is it's these cellular messengers that can not only help to stimulate collagen production, but the belief is they may be able to reduce inflammation. And whereas, let's say we do peptides, peptides are basically short chains of proteins that are cellular signals to try to create more collagen. The idea behind exosomes is that these can do that and a whole lot more. But I'm still, once again, not sure. Last I heard, the FDA was still cracking down on physicians who are using exosomes, but I think that maybe some of that has opened up since then, because I am hearing now about skincare companies that are creating products now based off exosomes.
Yeah, so I look at them the same way. They're sort of like the avatars of stem cells. It is still illegal. Well, I don't know. I guess the FDA does not recommend anyone inject them, but we use them a lot
Hmm.
just post laser resurfacing or with
Just
microneedling.
topically?
Yeah, just topically. But I don't know how much they do
Yeah.
in skincare products. If the skin, are they really getting absorbed? That always becomes a factor. Now, you look like you're 25. So tell us, what are your
I
top
wish.
three skincare products? What are if you were stranded on a desert island and you can only have three skincare ingredients to look as young as you feel, what would those three be?
Well, the first would definitely be sunscreen or sunblock, no question. And I have a lot of friends of mine who are in the alternative medicine space, and we've had a lot of discussions with this as my book has come out. I actually know one guy. He was really nice guy, and he said, and I was on his podcast, and he goes, I need to let you know what I use for sunscreen. I go, what is that? He goes, lard. I put
Lard.
lard on my face, and he goes, "Well, is that
Yeah,
okay?" And I was like, I don't think that that's going to protect your
that's like
skin.
baby oil.
But it's like, but lard, like, oh, I don't know. So yeah, sunscreen would be my number one thing. My number two thing when you're looking at anti-aging, and these are not going to be surprising to probably anybody who listens to your podcast. Number two would most likely be a retinol.
Hmm.
I think retinols are fantastic. You can get great exfoliation from them. It helps to thicken the collagen of the skin, and even it helps with pigmentation. And then three would probably be a tie between a brightening cream, like one with, let's say, kojic acid, versus, let's say, a vitamin C type of a serum. Um, it would be a combination. It'd be one or two of those, but definitely retinol is a big thing. I think one of the interesting ingredients that's recently gotten real popular, bakuchiol. I'm a big
Hmm.
fan of. I think that's been great. I have my own skincare line called Youn Beauty, and one of our products, more recent products, has bakuchiol in it, and it's been really really popular. But those are the ones that I would look at. Like I said, nothing crazy out there. Definitely not lard.
Yeah, stay away from the lard. So, is there any procedure that you love to do in your office in terms of keeping your skin auto rejuvenated, or anything that you love to do?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I'm a big fan of IPL. So I have, I'm fortunate as a plastic surgeon. We do have a lot of devices in my office. Some plastic surgeons have none, some have a few. We have quite a few, but probably not as many as you have. But so I get IPL done by my staff, so I'll do that on a regular basis. And then I've been doing Morpheus 8 to my submentum, meaning the area underneath my chin, because I know at 51 we're starting to look at laxity, and I can tell I
Hmm.
don't have quite the tightness that I used to, and so this is definitely one way that I'm fighting it off. So those are the two main things that I've been doing. I also do a little bit of Botox. You probably have seen I've
Yes.
self-injected myself a few times on TikTok,
Yes.
but I prefer not to inject myself. But I have, especially when the pandemic hit, I found myself in an empty office, and I opened up the fridge, and this was like a month into it. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a near full vial of Botox here, and you and I both know these are expensive. It's like over
Yeah.
$600. And I look around, there's nobody else in the office but me. So I'm like,
You
well,
have to take one for the team.
better not. Yeah, might as well use it. So
Yeah, some of us did turn to drugs during the pandemic, such as Botox. So, just before I let you go, what in terms of supplements, I get asked a lot about what supplements, is there a difference between if you're a woman or a man? What supplements should you really be looking to take in terms of anti-aging? Do you have like a top three that have a lot of science and data behind them?
yeah, I mean, the ones that I'm big fans of, the first thing is collagen, and collagen's has always been a big kind of flashpoint. A lot of people saying, "Oh, it doesn't work." Interestingly enough, and I did a lot of research on it. Now, full disclosure, I do have my own branded collagen, and it's a huge seller for my Youn Beauty skincare line. But collagen, the idea basically is that collagen is a large protein, and I mentioned earlier that it's a huge component of our skin. And there's a belief that, hey, if you take collagen as a supplement, is that going to help to benefit your skin? And so for many, many years, the answer was we don't know, or the science is not clear. But recently, there have been some pretty big studies that have looked at that and have seen some really nice results from it. So back in 2021, there was a study that I reference in my book, Younger for Life. It was over 1,100 people. They took hydrolyzed collagen supplement for 90 days and found an improvement in hydration and elasticity of the skin and in fine lines as well. And then more recently, there was a meta-analysis that was published just last year, 2023, of over 1,700 people hydrolyzed collagen supplement and found very similar findings. There have been studies where you take somebody and you take a group of people, you put them on hydrolyzed collagen supplements, and they've actually drawn their blood and found after taking the supplement an increase in the amount of these amino acids that are part of collagen in the bloodstream, and even biopsied the skin and found an increase in procollagen type 1 in the skin in the people who are taking these collagen supplements. And so, I think there are a lot of people out there, whether they're doctors or healthcare professionals, who will say that, oh, the science isn't clear, we don't really know. And really, it's coming down to is that I think was a fair statement maybe 5 years ago, but the studies are more and more coming out there. And these are studies with, like I said, over 1,000 people. You're not talking 20 or 30 people. And they're showing some pretty darn nice changes.
Essentially, you're just flooding the body with the building blocks that it needs, right? And then it's up to your skin to take these building
Yeah.
blocks and reform the collagen in your
Exactly.
body.
So that would be my, one of the big ones that I'm a fan of. So I have collagen. I put it in my. Now I used to put it in coffee and have it most mornings, and then my dentist was like, "Why are you drinking so much coffee?" Because I was getting staining in my teeth. So now actually I just have hot water and I put the collagen in, and ours doesn't have any taste to it. So it basically is like just drinking hot water, which I'm fine with. So I have that most mornings myself. Two other supplements that I would recommend, just a basic multivitamin. I think it's so important for us to take that. I'm a fan of taking a daily probiotic. The health of our gut is super important to the health of our overall body. And we're now realizing that there is a gut skin axis where the health of your gut really
Mm-hmm.
impacts the health of your skin. And we're learning more and more that certain inflammatory skin conditions have a connection with the gut. And so promoting a healthy gut microbiome by taking a daily probiotic, at least 3 billion colony forming units, by eating enough fiber, by also eating a lot of colorful fruits and vegetables. That's all going to be really beneficial for the gut. So that would
I
be
love
another
it.
one that
I
I would
love it.
take as well.
Well, before I let you go, I want to play a game called Slay or Nay. And I'm going to give you a topic or a trend. And
Sure.
if you love it, you're going to say slay. And if it's not for you, you're going to say nay.
Well, I want to see what if you agree with me though too. So
We
let's
may, we
see,
may.
because we may
All right.
disagree. We'll see.
Number one, fat grafting for facial plastics.
Oh, that's a sleigh. So that's something I've been doing for the last 20 years. Although I do a lot less of it now since we've got all these injectable fillers available. But I've always been a big fan of it. One of my favorite surgeries to
I love it
perform.
too. Soy milk.
That's a nay. I'm all
Oh,
about milk substitutes, but soy milk, couple of things. The first thing is, it is quite processed. And then the second thing with soy milk is a good portion of soy is GMO, a very, very high percentage of it. I'm a big fan of oat milk, almond milk, although there's questions about, environmental impacts. But overall, I'm a nay on the soy milk,
oh
but
no. I have a soy
yeah,
latte
I like the
every
others.
morning. I didn't know
Mine,
that.
that's Yeah, I mean, you take a look, and I've been influenced by some friends of mine who are, nutritionists, and they're more on the alternative side, and the vast majority of them are anti-soy. Now, I'll tell you too, I had a family member who was a boy and drinking a lot of soy milk, and actually ended up developing some mild gynecomastia.
Oh, because of the
Is that due to the
estrogen.
estrogenic effects?
Hmm.
I don't know. I have friends of mine who are vegan who are big into soy milk, and they're like, no, 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 those estrogens, it's not the same thing. But I don't know. But that's something too that I would put in there as a potential, who knows, type of a concern.
Wow.
And there's so many other, I think back when I grew up, it was the only milk substitute with soy. But now I think there's so many others to choose from that I think may be better options.
Okay, I have to rethink that one. What about tofu? And that's isn't that soy? Milk.
That is soy. I think in general, I'm a fan of tofu. I don't know, I'm a fan of tofu in general because that's going to be less processed, but not necessarily a fan of, let's say, uh, vegan burgers that are made with tofu. I mean, there's those companies that basically just make everything out of soy. That I think you're really getting into the ultra processed food type of a department, and overall, we know that that's not as good for us as more whole foods.
Yeah. What about silicone-based gels for scars?
Oh, you said slay. That's a slay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, that's, I think right now, I think it's funny because I do a lot of surgery and there are, one of the things that really irks me is I know there's some plastic surgeons who do operations and they're like, oh, because, I can make it so the scar looks so great and blah, 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 blah. And the fact is that the patient's body will determine how a scar looks. And the best thing that we have are things like silicone scar creams or gels or sheeting. We can laser them, we can inject steroids, but in the end, a scar is going to look like what that patient's body decides it's going to look like. And so if you have a surgeon who says, oh, they take credit for a good scar, then they have to take the blame for a bad scar. And really, in the end, I believe that our control over how a scar looks is very limited. And I'm not sure if you've seen that in your practice, but that's my belief. And we do everything we can to try to create good scars. But man, I can operate on 20 people, and 18 of them get a beautiful, really nice scar in the end, and then two of them they get hypertrophic, they get thick, and we're just like,
Yeah.
ugh,
It
and we're doing everything to them, and it just doesn't work
it
right.
also depends on the location, right? Because we know when scars
Yeah.
are under tension, obviously it's going to put them at higher risk for getting thicker or, developing keloids. What about Botox for scars? Are you using that in your clinic?
I haven't tried it. I know that people have tried Botox for freaking every indication, and
Well, I can,
and I have read in studies that may help improve it, but I don't know.
I've
Have you
actually been
tried it?
yeah, I have actually been very impressed by it. Anytime I do it on the face, I always do Botox at least a week or two before. And I also do this
Interesting.
with my resurfacing patients because as the new collagen comes in, if they're not scrunching up their muscles and not crinkling up the skin, the collagen lies down, nicer. Again, it goes back to, not being under tension. But I've also come across
Hmm.
some studies for Botox, like for chest scars, just because
Yeah.
it's thought to act on the fibroblasts and very little amounts. I'm talking like 8 units, very little,
Hmm.
just superficially. And there's been some thought that it acts on the fibroblasts. So I was
Hmm.
curious.
Yeah, I know I've seen studies, that have supported it. I just haven't tried it myself. It didn't seem to, I don't know, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. But have you tried microneedling with scars?
Yes, yeah. So we do that, and then
Like established scars, like
yeah,
hypertrophic
although I
scars?
don't, it's not my go-to. I'll use like a fractionated resurfacing for scars just because I can
Yeah.
really go deep and we do use also a lot of laser-assisted drug delivery. So we'll combine like exosomes, Kenalog, 5-FU, some of these things with
Hmm.
the laser resurfacing. And now studies are showing it's actually better to laser scars earlier, as soon as like 2 weeks or 3 weeks from the date of surgery. You are
Really?
almost preventing that scar from developing into a hypertrophic scar. So they do better when they are treated in the earlier stages of healing as opposed to waiting, 3 to 6 months. Um, so, yeah. So next up, I kind of think I know the answer to this one. Collagen supplements.
Yeah, so for me, that's definitely a sleigh. And I've had so many people, like I said, I mean, we have our own collagen supplement. It's a big seller for us. But I mean, the stories that I get from people who take collagen, I've had people say that their chronic joint pain has gotten significantly better, that muscle aches and stuff have improved, mobility has improved, hair has gotten thicker, nails are so much stronger. I mean, it's just so many
Mhm.
anecdotal stories, and then when you look at the studies on top of it, it's like, okay, like this does work. I was actually visiting my mom just a month or two ago, and she was making breakfast, and she said, Tony, my hair's gotten really thick in the last several
Oh.
months. Do you think it's that collagen that you're
Oh,
sending me every month?
nice.
I'm like, yeah, it could be, mom. So I don't know. There's so many, like I said, stories from it that it's hard for me to believe that it's all in people's heads. Like I feel that it definitely helps.
You can't argue with success. And a lot of my patients, or a lot of people I know, really swear by it as well. And so, what about Jello? Because that's collagen, but it's obviously collagen that's been boiled and, it's a different form, but that's hydrolyzed collagen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, we really want to look at what we know is scientifically proven, more so than Jello. What about
Mhm.
bone broth? Bone broth is a big favorite amongst nutritionists and alternative health docs. And I have so many friends of mine who are huge on bone broth. So bone broth, same idea. With bone broth, though, essentially you take bones and muscles and joints and stuff, and then you put that in water and you boil it in water and vinegar for anywhere from 4 to about 24 hours. And then you take that broth afterwards, and if you chill it, it basically solidifies into gelatin, which is basically pure collagen. Now, when you actually look at studies, and I have friends of mine who say, "Oh yeah, bone broth is fantastic for your skin and all that," there actually is no scientific studies to show that drinking bone broth is going to improve your skin. But there's also no scientific
Mm-hmm.
studies to show that drinking bone broth will
Mm-hmm.
not improve your skin. There just haven't been studies performed. So, is it possible that having gelatin that's packaged like that could potentially improve your skin? I suppose it's possible. I just don't know that that's we'd have to see the studies first. But it's the same idea I think as bone broth. Obviously, if I had to pick one or the other, for me, I go with bone broth just because it's not processed and packaged and all that type of stuff, and all these
Sure.
artificial flavors and colors and stuff added to it. Um, but I mean, I guess it's possible, but we know that the studies show that a hydrolyzed collagen supplement works. I would go for that first because you've got science behind it.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Well, the next one is a sleigh. Buying your book, Younger for Life, wherever books are sold. Guys, you have to read this book. I've really been enjoying it, and it really sets you up. It really changes your whole way of looking at aging, and I feel like a lot of my patients would benefit from reading this book. Before I let you go, what inspired you to write this book?
So really, I feel that there are books by dermatologists, and I have good friends of mine who are dermatologists who've written great books on how to take care of your skin. And then there are books by alternative health docs and nutritionists about how to take care of your diet and nutrition. And then there are books from plastic surgeons about procedures. But I never felt that there was one that truly encompassed all of that in a step-by-step plan. And so for me, once I realized that there are these this idea of autojuvenation, that it's real and that you can make these big changes and see huge change in your skin. I really wanted to put it out there, especially after we did the 21-day jumpstart with a small group of people and found great results with that. Now that we put it out to 10,000 and we tested them, I mean, the stories coming out from that are just so heartening, that people are taking really not only the quality and the health of their skin in their own hands, but their health of their whole body in their own hands, and seeing great changes with it. I firmly believe that, like I said, I turned 51, and it's like it's no fun after you turn 50. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older. But what's the alternative to getting older? Is you're in the ground. We don't want that. And I think today is such a fun time to
Mhm.
get older because we have so many tools at our disposal, from the information and how to make lifestyle changes to slow down the clock to all those treatments that you and I are doing in our offices, that this is a very exciting time to get older because we can really fight it every step of the way and actually enjoy the process of doing that.
I agree. It's so much fun, and there is so much we know now that we've never known before. Have you heard of rapamycin for
Yes.
anti-aging? And is that something that you believe in, or what are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
So yeah, for people who don't know, rapamycin is actually, it comes from an island called Rapa Nui, which is Easter Island, which I visited many years ago with my family.
Oh.
On the island is tiny. Like, you go up to the top, on one end of the island is this old volcano, like a crater. And if you stand at the edge of the crater, you can see the whole island in front of you. And like, there's literally one airstrip there. There's an airport, and they have literally two planes. They have an army plane, and then they've got the commercial plane that comes in once a day and leaves once a day from the island. Now, interestingly, there's this huge crater at one end of the island, and at the base of the crater it's kind of like almost like a rainforest down there, and that's where
Oh,
they discovered rapamycin.
wow.
It's this immune suppressant, essentially, that they use in people who are having organ transplants. It's the only place in the world where you can get it. It is freaking in this
I never knew
crater in
that.
Easter Island. And now people are finding that it can also potentially help with
Mhm.
longevity genes. So there are a lot of supplements that are being tested now, and
Yeah,
medications.
it's huge. Yeah.
Metformin is one that they're testing for anti-aging. Um, NAD is something that's being tested, but none of these that we know of are something that I would
Mhm.
recommend just yet. Theoretically, they may be beneficial, but I think whenever you're looking at anti-aging, I'm not an anti-aging scientist by any means. I'm a plastic surgeon, but the idea is that you want to, your cells eventually, they undergo a period what we call senescence. And senescent cells, otherwise known as zombie cells, are cells that eventually, your cells can only divide so many times before they enter a period of senescence where they're basically a cell that is alive but is not dividing anymore. And the idea is there, can you cause it so your cells continue to divide and continue to be youthful in that way, possibly by taking medications or supplements like that, but you also have to weigh that against
Mm-hmm.
potential risk of cancer. So what are cancer cells? They are cells that divide unnaturally and won't stop dividing,
That's true.
creating tumors. And so it's really interesting. Um, in general, those are my thoughts on it. I wouldn't be trying to biohack your body just yet with those types of things, but maybe here in the future, as the scientists continue to study it, it could be very interesting in the whole world of anti-aging medicine.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot of these medications, everyone gets excited and people start taking them, and then we realize, oh, actually, it accelerated aging by other mechanisms that we didn't know of before.
Yep.
So you do have to be really careful
Yeah.
when our bodies are so complex. And yes, we know a lot about it, but there's also so much that we don't know yet. So thank you so much for joining me. It was so fun talking to you. I always learned so
Thank you.
much from you.
Well,
And
same here.
tell
Thank you.
everyone where they can purchase your book and how they can find you. Although
Thank
you're
you. Yeah.
everywhere, I see you
Yeah. You
everywhere
can find me
online.
all over social media. The book is called Younger for Life. We actually have a website called autojuvenation.com. If you go to
Oh,
autojuvenation.com, there are links to purchase a book. And then if you do get it, we have a bunch of free gifts. We have a free recipe book with 10 recipes, additional recipes that are not in the book. We also will give you a $30 gift certificate to our online store, younbeauty.com, if you want to try our collagen supplement or skincare products or anything like that as well. So,
love it.
autojuvenation.com is where to go.
I love it. All right, we'll link it below as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Yoon, for joining me. I hope you have an awesome week ahead.
Thanks, Dak. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care.